So we are live. Welcome, everyone. This is the number 36 session. This is the 36th session of Advent of Divine Justice. We are exploring Advent of Divine Justice, and this is with the Clearwater Baha'i community and the Crimson Academy, brought to you by Ehsan Bayat and his very dedicated initiative to making sure that there are materials out there to study texts such as Advent Divine Justice. With that being said, we are welcoming you to watch all the sessions until now, but you're more than welcome to jump right into this session, as this session is moving on in the book, but we're talking about different subjects, and we're talking about the context of what we're reading. We're really exploring so we can understand a little more, not just on what the text is saying, but what it's referring to and the context, the time in which it was written, and so forth. Before we go on to actually commence the study for today, we have before us the prayer revealed by Abdul Baha for the Baha'is of the southern states. It's a teaching prayer, and we've been saying this every session in the opening and closing since we've decided to do so, and we welcome you to say these prayers for the region of the United States in which you reside, or a teaching prayer in general for wherever you're from. That being said, we will begin, and I will begin today with the prayer. O my God, thou seest me in my lowliness and weakness, occupied with the greatest undertaking, determined to raise thy word among the masses and to spread thy teachings among thy peoples. How can I succeed unless thou assist me with the breath of the Holy Spirit? Help me to triumph by the host of thy glorious kingdom, and shower upon me thy confirmations, which alone can change a gnat into an eagle, a drop of water into rivers and seas, and an atom into lights and suns. O my Lord, assist me with thy triumphant and effective might, so that my tongue may utter thy praises and attributes among all people, and my soul overflow with the wine of thy love and knowledge. Thou art the omnipotent and the doer of whatsoever thou willest.
Well, thank you very much, John and Jeremiah. Thank you, and welcome back, everyone. So here we are. We are, I think, as John said, our 36th session of exploring the Advent of Divine Justice. And so we're going to pick up where we were last time. So we were studying paragraph 100 in the Advent of Divine Justice. So Advent of Divine Justice. And in paragraph 100, which we find on page 103, this is where the beloved guardian is saying, I am moved at this juncture, as I am reminded of the share which ever since the inception of the faith in the West, the handmaidens of Baha'u'llah, as distinguished from the men, have had in opening up single-handed so many such diversified and widely scattered countries over the whole surface of the globe, not only to pay a tribute to such apostolic fervor as is truly reminiscent of those heroic men who were responsible for the birth of the faith of Baha'u'llah, but also to stress the significance of such a preponderating share which the women of the West have had and are having in the establishment of his faith throughout the whole world. So, dear friends, in the older version of the advent of divine justice. This one, that paragraph 100, it's has the title, see, there you can see it, preponderating share, right? You can see the title. So that is the main theme of this paragraph 100, that the women in this day and age have taken a preponderating share of the workload, of the teaching work, of all, per se, the sacrifices going into the field. And so here the beloved guardian is stressing on that. And in the previous paragraph, paragraph 99, we highlighted the two individuals, namely the lady from that was the greatest pioneer to Bulgaria, General Jack. We talked about her, Marion Jack. And then also in that paragraph, it highlighted those two luminaries that went to Australasia, the faraway continent of Australasia, namely the Duns, Clara Dunn and Hyde Dunn. And we talked about them. And then as we entered into paragraph 100, we also had we talked about, in our last session, we talked about Sitare Khanum and the incredible services that she rendered the faith. And so this is namely Lady Blomfield. If you all recall, in our last session, we talked about Lady Blomfield. So now, dear friends, we're going to get into our session today and talk about more of these incredible luminaries, these ladies, these handmaidens of God. Okay, so these, as the beloved guardian is saying, these ladies took on the preponderating share of the work of the cause. Okay, so another one of these incredible ladies during this period, her name is Corinne Knight True, also Corinne True. She was born near Louisville, Kentucky, on the 1st of November, 1861. After the Great Chicago Fire in 1871, the family moved to Chicago, where her father had invested in Chicago real estate. In the late 1870s, she married Moses True, despite her father's opposition. Corinne and Moses settled in Chicago and became active members of a Protestant church. They had 8 children within 10 years. The family was very happy until their 9-year-old daughter, Harriet, fell down the basement steps and died. Following this incident, Corinne and Moses left the church and searched for an alternative Christian church. So this was a very moving and, per se, life-shaking event, that this moment when her 9-year-old daughter fell down the basement steps and died. So at that moment, it shook her faith. In 1899, the loss of a son to diphtheria profoundly disturbed the family. So another loss. And then Corinne started to search more widely for answers to her deep questions. She learned about His Holiness Baha'u'llah in late 1899 and immediately accepted the faith. Soon afterwards, Corinne lost her 7-year-old son. Abdu'l-Baha sent her a tablet counseling her on the death of her son. And in 1906, her 21-year-old son died in a sailing accident. So tragedy after tragedy after tragedy of losing her children. This was extremely heartbreaking for Miss Corinne True. And here you can see a picture of Miss Corinne True, and this is her youngest child, Nathaniel. This picture was taken a few weeks before Nathaniel was stricken by diphtheria, 1898. This was a relatively treatable, and it is a relatively treatable disease, nowadays. But back then, they didn't have the hospitals like we have now, and the medicines like we have now. So when they got these kind of ailments, they would often die. In fact, the mortality rate was far higher in the early 1900s and late 1800s than it is now. So this was, even if you had 9 children or whatever, it was often expected that you would lose maybe even half of them due to different diseases or, situational problems such as accidents. So this was quite a tragedy for Miss Corinne True. On the 25th of February, 1907, Corinne arrived in Palestine to see Abdu'l-Baha. And during her visit, Abdu'l-Baha charged her with the responsibility of building the house of worship in Chicago and provided her with detailed instructions on how to achieve it. I pause right here because there's about a 20-minute or so interview to Miss Corinne True, and it's on YouTube, and I encourage you to find it. I didn't want to place it all here because it would take quite a time to listen to it, and it's a little hard to hear and understand, but you can actually see that if you Google Corinne True 1907 interview on YouTube, and or if you go to Google search Corinne True 1907 interview, and it's by also Mr. William Sears is doing the interview, you could read the transcript itself. And that is very interesting because that is her encounter with Abdu'l-Baha, and it's on YouTube, and it's her voice, her description of it. So that's an interesting per se anecdote. And I could have obviously put that here from YouTube, but it's a little long, so I did it. During her visit, Abdu'l-Baha charged her with the responsibility of building this house of worship in Chicago and providing her with the detailed instructions on how to achieve it. And on her return, Corinne facilitated the creation of a national body consisting of both men and women to coordinate the work of establishing the temple. And at the first convention held in Chicago in March of 1909, delegates elected 9 people to the executive board of the Baha'i Temple Unity, including Corinne True. And this is a picture right here, 1909. This is at the Unity Convention. So this is right after Nowruz. You see March 21st. So it's per se Nowruz 1909 period. And this is the room at the top of the house is where the first Baha'i Temple Unity Convention was held. This is the planning committee for the working for building the house of worship. So Corinne suffered more emotionally when her husband also, he died. As apart from all her, 4 children, they died from different, one from, as mentioned, from falling down the basement stairs, one from diphtheria, one from another accident. So they were all from losing her children. Her husband died from a heart attack. And her last surviving son caught tuberculosis in 1910. So number 5. So crisis, compounding crisis. Corinne True's heart was so sad. The son died 3 years later from tuberculosis, after catching tuberculosis. Abdu'l-Baha asked Corinne to join him at the Plaza Hotel after she had buried her son in the morning. His Holiness Abdu'l-Baha had lost all 5 of his sons. So he felt a very strong, per se, connection with her, all the loss of her children and His Holiness Abdu'l-Baha losing his children. So it was a very strong connection in that sense. And it was also very comforting for Corinne True to have that connection with Abdu'l-Baha. And so this is was an interesting quote on tragedy. I share it, we'll place it here. Sometimes in tragedy, we find our life's purpose. And so Miss Corinne True, through this tragedy, she suddenly became a flaming warrior. She became the tip of the spear to champion the house of worship. So Abdu'l-Baha called Corinne True the mother of the temple. And she was instrumental in initiating the construction of the temple by finding suitable land, organizing meetings, as well as raising funds for it. And this was no easy task, not on any level. If you recall the time period when this was all going on, this was coming up on the Great Depression, wars, one after another. So this was an incredible period of time where not only is the construction, please, Jeremiah, you have a hand.
I do. Before we got too far away from the tragedy of Corinne True and her family situation, she accepted the faith directly, like instantaneously. I guess my question is, like, do you think that at some point that these tests were, as you say, you believe, so I'm going to show you kind of thing? I'm like, I don't know if I could pass that test.
It's a great question. Yeah. Tests come to people in all different levels, right? And, as Jeremiah said, that is quite possibly could have been her tests, in the sense, as Jeremiah said, these tests come to say, if you believe, prove it, prove it. And because if prior, the first, she was a Protestant, from the Protestant church. And then when she accepted the faith, one after another, her children also passed also, right? But her faith was not shaken. She still remains strong. Who knows? Who knows what kind of tests will befall us? And because also the other thing is, as I'm not saying that these poor children per se passed because of his hand. I'm not saying that. But my point is, we don't know. We don't know. And the reality is that, we don't know what tests lie in front of us. We also don't know what our depth of our own capacity is. And so we don't, when, dear Jeremiah said, I don't know if I could handle that. I don't know if I could handle that either. God forbid that happened to my children or Jeremiah's children. Who knows? But in the end, we don't know what the base of our capacity is, right? Up here, we say, yeah, it's an unfathomable idea. But who knows what the situation is? Scott has a hand, please.
Yeah, if I'm not mistaken, the tablet that Abdu'l-Baha sent to her about the loss of a child is one of the most beautiful prayers or descriptions for parents who have lost children. Yeah. What a way for people to learn, for those that have lost children and have our heart broken, to read those things, talking about being in a garden and like it's something else, and it was actually read at the Sandy Hook Elementary at the memorial service for that by a Baha'i. Yeah, and, it touched a lot of people, as I remember.
That was probably one of the saddest events is the Sandy Hook event. And even when I talk about it, I cannot help but feel absolute sadness. When I remember, I don't want to per se digress, but you mentioned it, but that was one of the moments when the news hit. I was so sad that I wept almost the whole day. And I remember that I, recited, prayers for the departed, for every single one of those precious little souls, and it was what a tragedy of wastefulness, of cruelty and savagery. Thank you very much, dear Scott. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, His Holiness Abdul Baha sharing such a beautiful tablet, and we can find that in Star of the West, and you look up this tablet and from Abdul Baha on this. Yeah. So this is Miss Corinne True, and this is Dr. Zia Baghdadi. He's holding the shovel right there. He is turning the earth on September 24th, 1920, prior to the beginning of the borings to locate the bedrock. So this is the very beginning moments, right, for the start of the temple, right? And Corinne True is the first person on the right, okay? She's holding the book, okay, at her feet, with the book at her feet. See, you can see the book at her feet. That's Miss Corinne True, okay? And so this is Miss Corinne True, the mother of the temple, right there at that, per se, moment of turning of the earth, which is like a hallmark moment of starting of the temple. So this is 1931. So prior, 1920. Now this is 1931. This is the first picture on the temple steps after the completion of the superstructure. So now the superstructure has been completed, and you could see her right here. That's her. Okay? Isn't that cool? She's always there, right? This is Miss Corinne True, May 1st, 1931. So now the superstructure, the mother of the temple, at this incredible occasion for the superstructure. Now, a group of Chicago women in front of the newly completed superstructure. This is the same event, 1931. These are some of the incredible, per se, lionesses at the threshold of Baha'u'llah. These are incredible people. Mary Lesh, Mrs. Robinson, Corinne True, Nettie Tobin. If you remember, Nettie Tobin is the one who had got the, wheelbarrow, and put that rock, which is quite an impressive stone. If you ever go to the house of worship and see this stone, which the cornerstone, she could have found a smaller stone, but this is quite an impressive stone and in size, and put it in the wheelbarrow. So this is Miss Nettie Tobin and Mrs. Leading, Mrs. Lundberg, Gertrude Buekimi, Louisa Waity, Fanny Lesh. This is an incredible lady, okay? When this Fanny Lesh, not much has been written about this Fanny Lesh, and my uncle, who serves as on the exterior of the research department of the World Center. So there's the research department internal, and then there's the exterior research department. So he sent me an email about a year or two ago when I was getting this presentation prepared. He said, Ehsan, this lady, Fanny Lesh, is an incredible lady. And I said, I've not heard much of this person. There's not much in either Baha'i news or in either in, per se, the historical writings. Who is this person? And he said, I came across one letter of the beloved guardian on her passing. Okay, This Fanny Lesh. Now, this is just to show you how great these ladies are, okay, that are compiled right here. This Fanny Lesh, when she passed away, the beloved guardian says, I wept and my soul jumped out of my body and attended her, per se, her funeral and prayed for this lady, right? This is an incredible lady, and there isn't much on these people, but these were, per se, lionesses at the threshold during this time, where the preponderating share, right, of the work is being done by these incredible ladies. And so that's why I wanted to include some of these incredible ladies. Mrs. Ios, you know, this is the wife of Leroy Ios. Incredible people. So Corinne met the beloved guardian a number of times in her pilgrimage to the Holy Land. And the last time she met Shoghi Effendi was in Haifa, 1952, when she was 91 years old. And the beloved guardian Shoghi Effendi appointed her a handler of the cause of God on 29th February 1952. And she was one of several hands who attended the dedication of the house of worship in Wilmette on the 2nd of May, 1953. Isn't that incredible? It brings me such joy that she, per se, did what she was asked of by Abdul Baha. Abdul Baha gave her the task of bringing the house of worship together. And she, as the mother of the temple, brought it together. And this is the announcement. The guardian announcing her elevation to a station of which she never would have considered herself worthy. Moved convey glad tidings, your elevation rank hand cause. Stop. Appointment officially announced, public message addressed all national assemblies. May sacred function enable you in rich record services already rendered, Faith Baha'u'llah. So this is the, per se, the cablegram that was sent to the whole Baha'i world announcing her elevation to hand of the cause of God, Miss Corinne True. And here she is. This is her with her daughters at the time of the dedication of the house of worship. You can see how frail and gentle of physical frame she is, but truly, I would say the power of a dragon, I would say, in soul and spirit. That's how I would describe her. I mean, and here she's with her daughters at the time of the dedication of the house of worship, May 1st, 1953. And from the left, this is Dr. Catherine True, and there's Arna True Perron, and there's Mrs. True and Mrs. Edna True. And both Catherine as well as Edna were both members of the National Spiritual Assembly at the time. And Edna was appointed a Continental Counselor by the Universal House of Justice in 1968. So not only was she a light, a luminary from her, per se, blood, from her raising her, per se, her product. It says, there's in Kitab Ahdas, the most holy book, one of the ordinances of Baha'u'llah about bringing, being married, when you come and get married, it says that these two orbs, when they come together, they will bring forth one that will make mention of him, one that will make mention of him, right? And so these two daughters that Miss Catherine as well as Miss Edna served at the capacity of the National Spiritual Assembly, and Miss Edna as well as a Continental Counselor. And it's incredible. I mean, what a life, Miss Corinne True, even on that the personal level of having raised these children. Corinne True passed away in her home in Wilmette on the 3rd of April, 1961. So it was almost like a pioneering post, you know, that Abdu'l-Baha sent her to go and complete this mission of Abdu'l-Baha. So she passed away per se at her pioneering post in Wilmette, because that's where she was sent to go and complete this task, which was to raise the temple. And so of all places that she passed was at her post. And when she was 99 years old, at the 53rd National Convention, a memorial service was held at the request of the Hands of the Cause of God at the World Center. The foundation hall, adorned with beautiful red roses and huge baskets of pink and white carnations, was filled to capacity. The Hand of the Cause of God, Mr. Paul Haney, read messages from the two Hands of the Cause in the Western Hemisphere, Mr. Khadem and Mr. Sears, from the Asian Hands of the Cause gathered in Tehran from the National Spiritual Assemblies of Persia, of the Arabian Peninsula, and of Scandinavia and Finland. 99 years old. That's good genetics there, by the way. So yes, she lived a good life and really got to serve the cause to the max, to her last breath. And this is the most beautiful of these messages, eulogizing this great heroine of Baha'u'llah, came from the Hands of the Cause at the World Center. This is the message. It says, grieved, lost, distinguished disciple, Abdu'l-Baha, Hand Cause, Corinne True. Her long association, early history faith in America, raising Mother Temple West, staunch, unfailing championship covenant, steadfast support, beloved guardian, every stage unfoldment world order, unforgettable, enriched annals faith Western world. Living almost 100 years and living during that period from the early history where covering Abdu'l-Baha, then covering all the way through the 50s periods where to complete the temple. What a period of life that she lived. Such an incredible snapshot period of and so impactful a life she lived. This is the most venerable figure among the veteran pioneers of the faith in the West. This is from the House of Justice, the most venerable figure among the veteran pioneers of the faith in the West, had passed away quietly April 3rd, 1961. And this is her, her marker stone. Miss Corinne True, Hand of the Cause of God. Now we go to another amazing light, dear friends. Miss May Maxwell. May Ellis Maxwell is known as the mother of the Baha'i community in Canada. And together with her husband, William Sutherland Maxwell, she established the first Baha'i community in Montreal in 1902. And May was born in Englewood, New Jersey, 14th January 1870. So here's a lovely picture of Miss May Maxwell here to the right. May first met His Holiness Abdu'l-Baha on the 17th of February, 1899, during a pilgrimage she made to Palestine with a group of American believers. And here she is. These are some Western pilgrims with the resident Baha'is in the Resvan Garden. And Louise Bosch is seated on the left, right there, and followed by May Maxwell. So this is 1909 pilgrimage. This is quite historic meeting. This is the pilgrims that had the honor of meeting Abdul Baha. May met her future husband, William Sutherland Maxwell, while living in Paris with her mother and brother in October of 1899. This is the early Baha'i community of Paris. And this is Mr. Thomas Breakwell. He's seated right here. And to his right is May Maxwell. So, as many of you may know, Mr. Thomas Breakwell is the first English Baha'i. And at a very young age, shortly after he became a Baha'i, he passed away from tuberculosis, also known as consumption. And it's an incredible tablet from Abdul Baha to Thomas Breakwell. And I encourage you to read it. So this is, and as you all know, May Maxwell taught the faith to Thomas Breakwell. So this was an incredible period that she was there in Paris. So William Sutherland Maxwell was already, this is the husband of May Maxwell. He was already a famed architect for his design of the Saskatchewan Legislative Building. So this is the Saskatchewan Legislative Building. It's still in existence. You can go to Google image search and put it in Google image search and you can see it. So it's very impressive. And I don't know if I have the slides in my presentation. No, it's actually, okay. So what I want you to see in this imagery, okay, this is the Saskatchewan Legislative Building, okay? Look at the top of the structure here, okay? This part is very similar to the Shrine of the Bab, okay? Okay, and I encourage you to go and look at the Google image search. You'll see it much clearer, okay, than this picture right here. I actually had other slides and everything. I don't know if it's in this presentation right here. Oh, it's actually, I think it's in my dispensation of Baha'u'llah class. But anyway, so, and then even more interesting, because he was the same architect, everything, right? Right here, if you look right here, you can see this triangular part right here. This part is very reminiscent of the archives building, okay? And you can see the columns coming down, okay? So this is William Sutherland Maxwell, the architect of this structure. And so his design coming from the legislative building here and the archives entrance is very similar features. He has incorporated in the Baha'i buildings on the art. And in May 1902, May and William Maxwell married in London, England, and moved to Montreal, where they started to build a Baha'i community. Their home was known as a vibrant hub where people were taught about the faith. And many early believers learned about the faith in the Maxwell's home. This is very important, my dear friends, because this is how every Bahai's home should be, okay? There should not be an anomaly. Oh, we're talking about the Maxwells, right? Oh, there's books named after them by Earl Redmond, you know? And, the Maxwells in Montreal, they should be, every Baha'i should be like, they have these firesides and they're having gatherings in their homes. It should be commonplace, right? So their home was known as a vibrant hub where people were taught about the faith. And this is how every Bahai's home should be. Anyway, so this is how they looked when they got married. So this is Miss Maxwell at her young age of getting married, and William Sutherland Maxwell at his vibrant age of getting married. And this is their invitation, their wedding's invitation. Mr. Bowles announces the marriage of her daughter, May Ellis, to William Sutherland Maxwell on May 8th, 1902 in London. So there you go. I actually found their wedding invitation. There you go. So when Abdu'l-Baha visited Montreal after 5 months traveling throughout the United States, he accepted the invitation of the Maxwells and stayed with them for 4 days. I pause right here. Now, this is Abdu'l-Baha, right? He could have gone anywhere he wanted, okay? He's this, per se, the sign of God on earth, perfect exemplar, manifestation of all perfection is Abdu'l-Baha. Where he went was where there was that level of spiritual magnetism, okay? And he was spiritually, magnetically attracted to the purity and devoutness of the Maxwells. And so when, after 5 months traveling in the United States, when the invitation was from the Maxwells in Canada, of all places, you know, invited Abdu'l-Baha to come, he went to Canada, okay? And this is the only place he went in Canada, okay? So it's an incredible invitation that he went and stayed with them for 4 days. So he went and stayed with the Maxwells for 4 days. And during that period, Abdu'l-Baha gave 7 public talks, in addition to numerous interviews with various groups and individuals. And after the visit, His Holiness Abdu'l-Baha praised May Maxwell for the arrangements she had made. And so this is the Maxwell home. And this is His Holiness Abdu'l-Baha's room in the Maxwell home. So these are, per se, the pictures that are straight out of Baha'i news. So how they looked back in the 70s, whatever, early times. Okay. And so this is how it looked like. And it is now considered the shrine. It's the shrine. Now, this is an interesting thing. So May Maxwell here in this picture is with a young Mary Maxwell. And if many of you may know, Mary Maxwell is Amatul Bahari Khanum, the wife of the beloved guardian, Shoghi Effendi. So this is May Maxwell, and there's a young Amatul Bahari Khanum. And so this is a story. I could not put this whole incredible story online, but I encourage you to look up the story of how Abdu'l-Baha blessed May Maxwell, okay? Google search this. This is an incredible story. The story of how Abdu'l-Baha blessed May Maxwell, okay? It's an interesting story, okay? And you can find it, Baha'i Stories Blogspot, okay? So, okay, moving on. Despite poor health, May Maxwell served the Baha'i community of Canada from 1902 until 1940. Now, this is 38 years, right? 38 years serving the Baha'i community of Canada. That's why she's got the title of Mother of Canada, Mother of the Baha'i community of Canada. She made significant contributions to the establishment of the Baha'i communities of St. John's, Brockville, Ottawa, Toronto, Calgary, and Vancouver. And she passed away shortly after, pioneering, of all places, to Argentina in 1940. It's not enough, like, hey, I'm the mother of the Baha'i community of Canada. Let's go to another continent, Let's go south of the border and go to Argentina, right? But she did. That's who she is. And because the flame of Baha'u'llah is burning in her, and she wanted to pioneer. She wanted to teach the cause. And that's who she is. And this is from the Ottawa Journal. So this is the Ottawa Journal announcing her passing, because Canadian tourist dies. Buenos Aires, March 1st, May Alice Maxwell. She was only 60 years old. a visiting tourist from Canada, died here today at her hotel. Hotel officials said she was the wife of William Sutherland Maxwell, a Montreal architect. You know, I heard a account of May Maxwell, and she was what, you know, in life, we all have heroes, right? Often our heroes are our parents, justfully so, right? And in my life, May Maxwell is personally one of my heroines. She's one of my heroes, someone that in your whole life you look up to. And why I mentioned May Maxwell is she, the accounts that I heard of her, 60 years old is not very old, you know? And it's, I heard this from one of the hands, Mr. It was Mr. Frutan, when I was serving in the World Center, said that she was literally like a burning candle. She was literally like a burning candle. And she had reached such a zenith of heat and flame in Canada. And the call for pioneering to Argentina was suddenly brought to her attention, and that she rushed forth, and the intensity and heat and flame overtook her. And that is how she suddenly gave her life. It was sudden. And so she was such an incredible soul. And I encourage everyone, all these beautiful souls that we're covering. I'm obviously not doing any level of justice, but I encourage you to read and study more and more. But I'm just giving you, as they say, snapshots, because in that paragraph 100, talking about these ladies, all of these ladies are during this time period of doing that preponderating share of service. So this is the cablegram that the beloved guardian sent to the world. Now, remember, this is his mother-in-law. You know, some of us may not have the best mother-in-laws, but truly the guardian had a great mother-in-law. Okay, May Maxwell, what an incredible lady. So on the 3rd of March, 1940, the beloved guardian cabled the Baha'i world. Abdu'l-Baha's beloved handmaid, distinguished disciple May Maxwell, gathered glory Abha kingdom, her earthly life so rich, eventful, incomparably blessed, worthily ended. To sacred tie her signal services had forged priceless honor, martyr's death. So she attained the rank of a martyr too. Double crown deservedly won. 7-year plan, particularly South American campaign, derived fresh impetus. Example, her glorious sacrifice, Southern outpost faith, greatly enriched through association, her historic resting place, destined remain, poignant reminder, resistless march, triumphant army, Baha'u'llah. Advise believers both Americas hold befitting memorial gatherings. So if you recall, Advent of Divine Justice, the beloved guardian, 1938, is calling the believers to go pioneer to these South American countries, right? And here, for 38 years, May Maxwell has been championing Canada. And then in 1938, the beloved guardian this is the first 7-year plan. He's saying, go forth to these Latin American countries. Here, she's now 60 years old, and she's given her whole life, and she rushes off to Argentina, to Buenos Aires. Here, the beloved guardian is giving her these 2 immortal titles as martyr of the cause here. Double crown deserved. May Maxwell. So the design of the memorial that was made by May's husband, William Sutherland Maxwell. So the design of her resting place was by her husband. And the wings were added by the daughter. Amatul Baha'ri Khanum, as well as the vases on either side are from, per se, the son-in-law. I would, isn't that lovely? His Holiness, the beloved guardian Shoghi Effendi. So this is it's like a family. It really is. It's a family, right? From May Maxwell to William Sutherland Maxwell to Khanum to the beloved guardian. And so this is the love of that the beloved guardian. He hand chose these specific vases, and you can read about that. He wanted to from his own pocket get something that would be dignified, and he also wanted to have that symmetry on either side, because the beloved guardian had such a perfect eye for beauty, and so he wanted to get something specifically for the resting place of May Maxwell. And so you could read about that. It's very interesting, and how he chose that. Moving on, dear friends, we got a few more of these incredible ladies, and I encourage you to read more on these individuals. Now we're moving to another incredible hand of the cause. This is Dorothy Baker. Wow. All of these people are incredible. I'll let our dear Scott start us off from this one. Are you muted, dear Scott, or is your...
I'm sorry.
Oh, there you are.
I did. Okay. I pushed it, but missed it, I guess. Dorothy Baker was born on the 21st about December of 1898 in Newark, New Jersey. Her grandmother, Ellen Tuller Beecher, was one of the first Baha'is in North America and was known as Mother Beecher. Ellen Tuller Beecher took her granddaughter to New York to see Abdu'l-Baha when Dorothy was 13 years old. When they entered the room, Abdu'l-Baha greeted Mother Beecher and directed Dorothy to sit on a footstool at his feet, facing the audience. As Abdu'l-Baha spoke, Dorothy gradually turned to him, gazing with adoration. And then there's a picture of Dorothy and David Beecher in 1912.
Right. I mean, whenever I hear these stories, these accounts of His Holiness Abdu'l-Baha and these souls that learned about the faith at these early times, it is as if they have this pure inner eye that are just so receptive. How Abdu'l-Baha immediately saw Mother Beecher, and immediately greeted Mother Beecher and directed Dorothy to sit on the footstool. It's just like he knew, and it's that spiritual eye that seeing the heart, of the pureness of Mother Beecher, and then immediately saw the purity of Dorothy Baker and directed her to sit at his feet. And this is all of these accounts just are like, per se, confirmations accounts of the wowness. We don't talk about miracles in this faith, but for me, they're all amazing accounts of that really are all just happenstance accounts in the life of the central figures of Abdu'l-Baha. And to anyone else would be like, wow, they're just so wow, but there's just so many of them in the history of the faith. We don't often talk about them one after another. So Miss Dorothy studied at the Montclair Normal College in New Jersey and graduated in 1918. So it was just the normal college. It wasn't, no, that was the name of it, right? So that was the name of the college she studied at. And this is a photograph taken before her marriage, showing her in her graduation gown from Normal College in New York. So she's in her graduation outfit right there. Dorothy Baker, this is a photograph taken in her late 1930s, and this is one of her favorites. It wasn't very often that you would smile in photographs. That wasn't common practice, even well up to the 1950s, actually almost the 50s. Starting into the 60s, people started smiling more in pictures. But in the 50s, they were pretty sullen, pretty serious in pictures. So this is in the late 1930s. She could actually see a smile on her face. And so this was one of her favorites here. Dorothy met Frank Baker in September of 1920. And they were married at Bud Lake, New Jersey on the 21st June 1921. So this is their wedding party at Bud Lake, June 18th, 1921. And you can see Frank and Dorothy and Frank's younger brother, Robert and Libby Rice. So this is their wedding party marriage. Okay, then what happened? The Baker family moved to Lima, Ohio, 1927. And here, this is Bill, Dorothy Baker, and Louise in the front yard of their address, 615 West Elm Street, Lima, circa 1927. So she moved to Ohio. Dorothy Baker, she was an enthusiastic Baha'i teacher, which I encourage everyone to be too, okay? And a powerful speaker. She used to spend a great deal of time studying the Baha'i writings. So this is a very important point. She didn't just magically learn how to be a good speaker. She practiced. She spent a great deal of time studying the Baha'i writings and prayed daily and fervently. Dorothy Baker was instrumental for example, in establishing the College Speakers Bureau for the Committee on Race Unity. Now, I pause right here. This is a very important point. Remember, she's relatively young white lady, okay, in the 1940s, when the whole country is segregated, and now talking about a committee on race unity, okay, that's not something a young white lady should be talking about. But yeah, she was going to universities and colleges and established this College Speakers Bureau for the Committee on Race Unity. And in 1941 to 2, she visited 30 colleges. And in 1942 to 3, she visited 50 more. And across 4 years through this bureau's work, this College Speakers Bureau, she spoke to more than 60,000 students in 20 states, to more than 140 American colleges and universities. She served the National Spiritual Assembly of the Baha'is in the United States for 14 years, worked 9 national committees, and traveled extensively, visiting many communities in the Americas and Europe as well. And she was appointed a Hand of the Cause in 1951. You know, the only person that I could say spoke more people to would be His Holiness Abdul Baha, going from state, university to college to places, and maybe Martha Root. And that is probably it. She, during this period of time, in just a short few years, 1941, 30 colleges, 50 colleges, and then across 4 years to more than 60,000 students in such a relatively short period of time, teaching the cause and promoting the principle of the Baha'i faith on race unity. And then her service on national spiritual assemblies over 14 years and traveling extensively throughout Americas and Europe. What an incredible soul this Dorothy Baker was. So what happened? Right? December 24th, 1951. This is from the beloved Guardian, Shoghi Effendi. He sent this cablegram. Our now ripe to take long, inevitably deferred step in conformity with provision of Abdul Baha's testament, through appointment of first contingent of the hands of the cause of God, 12 in number, equally allocated Holy Land, Asiatic, American, European continents. So this is his announcement of the first contingent for the hands. So this is such a cool little piece I found here. This is I found this in Baha'i News. So Dorothy Baker remembered that day. I came home from the National Assembly meeting. Remember, 14 years she was serving on the National Spiritual Assembly. So she came home from National Spiritual Assembly meeting that day. She later told her daughter, Louise, I had been asked by some national office to do a chore I did not want to do. I did not want to do that chore. The next day, I got a phone call from Edna True in Wilmette. Dorothy, are you sitting down? Why? No, what's up? Well, sit down. Are you sitting down now? Yes, I am, said Dorothy. Now, what's new? A cable has just come from the Guardian. Miss True proceeded to read it. It was time, the cable said, to name the first contingent of the hands of the cause. The 8th name on the list was that of Dorothy Baker. Dorothy lost her voice. For 3 days, she had laryngitis. The whole body overwhelmed because every atom of her body understood what that meant, to be elevated to the rank hand of the cause of God, that it so overwhelmed her that she lost her voice. So shortly after, so remember, this is 1951, right? Elevation to hand of the cause of God. Only a few years after, Dorothy Baker tragically dies 10th January 1954 in an airplane crash in the Mediterranean Sea near the island of Elba. She was only 56 years old. This is the announcement. 2 plane accidents claim 49 lives. This is the one here, right here, including Americans dying crash of jetliner in the Mediterranean. So this is the announcement. And so I wanted to, so this was such a big story, this airplane crash, that National Geographic actually did a full 1-hour documentary on this airplane crash. I'm not going to show the full documentary. I just want to show the animation of the actual, how did it happen? How, in God's name, did this airplane crash happen? Okay, so I'm going to share this for you so you can understand it. Okay, so here we go. So this was the airplane itself, the BOAC, the British Airways flight that she was on. Okay. So, and these were all the pins that were on. So what happened was, this is the BOAC airplane. So one of the screws in the front of the airplane, you'll see it. So it was flying, and it broke apart and entered into the ocean. So how this happened, I read all the studies of how this happened and everything. It was because of the design of the windows and doors back then, okay? So I'm going to pause on the video so you could see it let me scroll back. You see how all the windows are squares. You see that? Now, that's not the case anymore. If you look at an airplane's windows, they're ovals. Okay? There is a reason that they're ovals. It's not just, happenstance that happened. Okay? Also, all the doors are squares on this airplane. What happened is pressure builds up at the corners. And so what happens is in this plane, the pressure built up at all the corners of this, and it built up at the very top. And one of those little screws, while I was showing in that video, one of those little screws right here at the top, it right here, show you. See, the screws right up at the very top of the airplane. It caused the separation of the airplane to take place. Yeah, so that's what happened. Absolute tragedy. And so on the passing of Dorothy Baker, the beloved guardian sent the following message dated the 13th January 1954 to the Baha'i community. Hearts grieve at lamentable, untimely passing of Dorothy Baker, distinguished hand of the cause, eloquent exponent of its teachings, indefatigable supporter of its institutions, valiant defender of its precepts. Her long record of outstanding service has enriched the annals of the concluding years of the heroic and the opening epoch of the formative age of the Baha'i dispensation, fervently praying for the progress of her soul in the Abha kingdom. Assure relatives of profound, loving sympathy, her noble spirit is reaping bountiful reward. Advise hold memorial gathering in the temple befitting her rank and imperishable services. So there's several words in this statement that demonstrate her staunchness, her leonine type of personality. One of them, indefatigable, is an incredible word to put there. Encourage you to look up the exact definition. I'm not going to do anything, but look up these words: indefatigable supporter, valiant defender, outstanding service. Incredible staunchness this lady had, distinguished hand of the cause. So this is the stone marker, okay? This is the stone marker honoring all those bodies that were never recovered after the plane crash that claimed the life of Dorothy Baker, January 1954. And the very first name on this stone marker is Miss Dorothy Beecher Baker. And if you're interested, I know I study history, the faith from all kinds of angles. The full National Geographic episode on this, the flight, it's also on YouTube. So if you are interested to watch that, you could just look that also up. It's the BOAC flight crash in 1954. So you can always look that up, and it's on YouTube, the full 1 hour episode. It's pretty interesting, showing how it happened and the aftermath. Also, the aftermath is very interesting. Actually, every plane now is the safety is based upon this flight, because now every single plane has curved windows, has curved doors, and all the pins that are connecting the different parts of the structure of the airplane together has certain codes, and it has certain requirements because of that 1954 crash that went into the ocean. Now, even more interesting. You were like, wow, that's pretty interesting, Ehsan. But there's even more. Actually, it's not, I have it in another presentation, but Miss Baker prayed to actually her resting place be the Mediterranean Sea. And I actually had several slides, and I have it because when I was developing this Advent to Divine Justice presentation, I actually had multiple, it's under different development stages. And so in one of my development stages, I actually had those slides. It's not in this stage, not in this one. But Miss Dorothy Baker prayed that her resting place be the Mediterranean Sea. And you say, Ehsan, why would she want her resting place to be the Mediterranean Sea? It's because she wanted to be on the shores of Akka and be constantly laughing at the shores of Akka. And so every time that this tide would come in, it would be like, I am humbling myself in prostrating myself in the presence of Abdullah, the beloved guardian, constantly, coming and then come back and then come back and then almost like, because that's what the wave does. A wave comes and then it prostrates itself and then comes back and then prostrates itself again. So she wanted to have that as her resting place. Now, I actually had several slides to show this. This was very interesting. The beloved guardian consented to this wish, and accepted that would be so. And it was I have actually all the and you can actually find this in the book. There's a book on Miss Dorothy Baker. It's the title is escaping me right now. Dear Scott, do you remember the title?
Yeah, I was just going to try and get it. I find the book. It's on a shelf here somewhere, but I don't know.
The title is escaping. I'll think of it in a second. Oh yes, of course, From Copper to Gold.
Oh yeah.
So in the and you can even this great book is even online. It's in the Baha'i Library website, From Copper to Gold, and you can read it online. Okay, and that account that I'm talking about, where the beloved guardian per se consented to her wish, and this was a very early wish, and it was only in her innermost heart. So the beloved guardian read her innermost heart and consented to her innermost wish and desire and consented to that. And that is how that happened. Okay, so moving on to another incredible heroine. Okay, checking our time first. We're good on time. This lady has an incredible first name, Euphemia. Okay, I've never heard anyone named Euphemia. So her nickname is Effie. Euphemia Eleanor Baker, and she was the first Australian woman to accept the faith of Baha'u'llah. And she's nicknamed Effie, and she was born on the 25th March, 1880 at Goldboro, Victoria, Australia. And she studied the visual arts and developed a great love for photography. And if someone asked you, who was the great Baha'is that went to Australia? And probably it would be the Duns, right? Hi, Dun and Clara Dun. So yes, you're absolutely right. The Duns brought this incredible lady into the faith. So in 1922, she became a Baha'i after attending a talk given by Haid Dun on the Baha'i faith. And she started her travel teaching by accompanying the Duns to Tasmania and Western Australia in 1923. And she visited New Zealand in 1924 with Martha Root, of all people, right? So she accompanied Miss Martha Root. And in New Zealand, she decided to join 4 Baha'is who were planning to make a pilgrimage to the Baha'i holy places in Haifa. And the pilgrims departed from Adelaide on January 1925. And this is Miss Effie Baker of Melbourne, Australia, who traveled with Miss Martha Root, Baha'i teacher and lecturer, on her notable trip through that country. So that was when she was accompanying Miss Martha Root. This is a picture of Miss Effie Baker, the immortal photographer. That is the title that the beloved guardian has given her. And you're going to find out why she has this incredible title, immortal photographer. So here's a picture. I love these pictures of the old pilgrim groups. This is Miss Effie Baker seated center front, okay, right there. Seated center front. I think this is her, isn't this? I would think but it says seated center front with a group of Baha'i friends from other groups. I'm thinking this is her. Let me see. Yep, I'm thinking this is her. It says center front, but I'm thinking this is her. It's not this one. Okay. When she visited Israel, March 1925 for pilgrimage. And you can see the different, per se, costumes, attire that the Eastern Baha'is and the Western Baha'is wore. There's Miss Effie Baker. And I really like this guy's mustache. Okay, and some local and visiting Baha'is in Haifa in 1925. And this is Miss Effie Baker seated from Melbourne, Australia. So representing the Australia. And this is a picture, Miss Effie Baker, top right, up here. Israel, March 1925 on pilgrimage. So nothing escapes the beloved guardian. Once the beloved guardian finds out something about you, he's got you. So after the pilgrimage, Effie spent some weeks in England, and then she returned to Haifa on the invitation of the beloved guardian Shoghi Effendi to stay there as the hostess of a new pilgrim house built for Western believers. The beloved guardian soon learned of Effie's talent in photography and model making. At that time, Shoghi Effendi was preparing the first Baha'i yearbook, a publication reporting on worldwide Baha'i activities, later to be renamed the Baha'i World. The early volumes of this publication include many photographs taken by Effie Baker of the Baha'i Monument Gardens on Mount Carmel and the Baha'i holy places in Haifa and Akka. Effie also constructed a model of the landscapes designed by Shoghi Effendi. So if you open Baha'i World, early Baha'i World volumes and the Baha'i yearbook, all those pictures are thanks to Miss Effie Baker. This is a picture, a view taken by Miss Effie Baker to show the general area of land surrounding the Shrine of the Bomb, which was come under Baha'i ownership and control. So you can see the mausoleum up here. So in 1930, the beloved guardian asked Effie Baker to travel to Iran to photograph the places associated with the early history of the Babi and Baha'i religions. This was an urgent task, since many of these places were being razed with a Z, not I-S-E, the raised as in destroyed. So these places were being destroyed by the Persian government's modernization program. At that time, the beloved guardian was completing his translation of Nabil's narrative, the Dawnbreakers. So he was completing his translation of the Dawnbreakers, and he required her photographs for the first edition of this book. So there was supposed to be more than one edition, but the beloved guardian did not have time. Okay? So he wanted photographs covering this early history of the faith. And so he sent his immortal photographer of all places to Iran, right? So Effie's venture to Iran in 1930 was undertaken during a time when Westerners, particularly women, received little protection in the Middle East, and also during a period when Baha'is were continuously persecuted, as they are today. Effie had to risk her safety in order to travel there, capturing photos of sites and buildings related to the history of the faith. For 8 months, often dressed in a black cloak, a chador, in accordance with the local custom, she moved in secret between locations, keeping her Western identity and treasured camera equipment well hidden in case she was suspected for being a spy and arrested. So she had one of these type of cameras. It's a Kodak 1A autographic Kodak Junior. This is a type of camera that Effie Baker used when in Haifa as well as in Iran. So it would pop out, and when she wanted it, and she would take the picture and she would put it back in, and she would cover up with hide it with her chador. So it gave her that ability and freedom to go and take the pictures, and as well as she would have it around her. So Effie later on in life entered hospital toward the end of 1967. Because of her deteriorating physical condition, her sense of humor never faltered. And when a Christian clergyman, noting her religion on a chart beside her bed, and commented, "Baha'i, isn't that the religion that takes a little bit of Christianity, a little bit of Islam, and a little bit of all the other religions, and mixes them all around, a bit like a fruit salad?" Effie replied, "Yes, that's right, and I swallowed the lot." Her sparkling wit endeared her to all, while participants enjoyed sessions at the Yerenbull Summer School. Effie's unique and eventual life reached its appointed term. She passed away in Sydney on the 2nd day of January 1968 at the age of 88. So at a time when the beloved guardian desperately needed someone to go and help him do the dawnbreakers, capture these places, who went? A lioness went. She was a lioness. What courage to go to Iran. And this lioness, and this is another thing, in the animal kingdom, when we talk about lions, it's the female lion that does all the action, but the male lion gets the credit per se. He looks pretty impressive with the mane, but it's the female lion that actually goes and does the hunting and the killing, and it's the female lion. And in this sense, she really was the courageous one. She is the courageous. She championed. She went, and she has the laurels and the victory to ascribe to her name. This immortal photographer. And so this is the cable announcing her passing. This is grieved news passing. Miss Effie Baker, devoted maidservant. This is from the Supreme Body, Universal House of Justice. Grieved news passing. Miss Effie Baker, devoted maidservant, Baha'u'llah. Historic services, particularly photographic record, dawnbreakers. Unforgettable. Assure loving prayers, sacred threshold, progress her soul, Abha Kingdom, the Universal House of Justice. Grieved news passing, much loved early Australian believer Effie Baker. Dedicated services, faith, homeland, and world center. Unforgettable. Assure prayers, shrines, her behalf, the hands of the cause of God. And this is from Ria Khanum. By the publication of the Dawnbreakers, richly illustrated with the pictures she had taken, the results of her trip to the various parts of Iran and of her efforts in recording photographically the many sacred and historical sites there, accomplished with great care and wisdom, under the direct instruction of the beloved guardian, became evident. I never heard a single word from her personally about those glorious services to the faith of God, nor the selfless acts performed in the Holy Land. She was truly humble and an exemplary manifestation of nothingness. This is real Khanum writing, right? Incredible. She was truly humble, an exemplary manifestation of nothingness. Wow. And this is her resting place, Miss Effie Euphemia Eleanor Baker. The essence of faith is fewness of words and abundance of deeds. And this is also one of those markers beside her resting place. It says, first woman in Australia to accept the Baha'i faith, honored by services to Baha'i World Center, 1925 to 36. Remembered for her loving devotion. We move on, dear friends. We got half an hour or so. I know I'm enjoying it. What an incredible, talking about these ladies, right? Now we move to this incredible lady, the outstanding benefactress, Amelia Collins. So I'll let my dear friend Scott start us off with this one.
Amelia Engelder Collins, nicknamed Millie, was born on the 7th of June in 1873 to a Lutheran family in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. She married mining engineer Thomas H. Collins and lived in Calumet, Michigan, and later Bisbee, Arizona. Collins met great success in Bisbee by developing the porphyry copper mining operations that eventually became the Phelps Dodge Mining Company.
Excellent, thank you.
Yeah.
I think it's periphery, I'm not. Okay, and there's Miss Amelia Collins at her young age. I don't recall if we watched the video on Miss Collins earlier, but I have the video here, so we could watch this video so you can see Miss Collins here.
The very first time I heard of Amelia Collins was when I was a child, maybe 5 or 6, visiting the Holy Land with my family. We were walking along the wide path in Bahji, the only sound our footsteps on the white pebbles, and before us towered a beautiful wrought iron gilded gate leading to the shrine of Baha'u'llah. "This is the Collins Gate," my mother whispered to me, named after Amelia Collins. In my child's mind's eye, Amelia Collins too was a figure who towered above me like this enormous gate. When I finally saw photos of her, it surprised me that, as described by Hand of the Cause, Mr. Abul Ghasem Faizi, she was in fact quite small, a slender, white-haired, very upright, elderly lady. When I began to read about her life, however, I realized that this incredible woman was indeed like this gate, strong, upright, and truly a spiritual giant. Mr. Faizi goes on to describe the gate itself as standing silently as a loving remembrance of the one who adored the guardian of the faith, Shoghi Effendi. The more I read about Amelia Collins, the more I found that her life was truly one that was based on immense love and profound devotion to the guardian. As she herself explained, Out of the immense treasury of all the writings, I memorized one sentence and did my utmost to follow that one injunction. It served as a lamp of guidance, shedding light on the dark and obscure paths of my life. That phrase is from the will and testament of the master, where he says that the friends should make Shoghi Effendi happy. Whatever step I took in my life, any vote cast in the assemblies, any trip taken, even any thought, I would first ask myself whether my vote, words, trip, or thought would make him happy. When I was sure, then I would take action without fear. Millie, as she was called by the Guardian and by all those close to her, was born on the 7th of June, 1873, in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. With 9 brothers and 4 sisters, she was born 7th in a family of 14. Her father was a Lutheran clergyman, and she grew up in a religious and strict household, although she is described as possessing a naturally strong character and often stood up to her father. As a young woman, she married Thomas Collins, and together they lived in Michigan before moving to Arizona and then to California. It was through Nellie Stevenson French that Miss Collins first learned of the Baha'i faith, and she became a Baha'i in 1919. Mr. Fazey describes how Miss Collins' first Baha'i friends in America had told her to write to Abdu'l-Baha and beg for confirmation and strength. He recounts, "The night she heard this, she could hardly sleep. Till morning she was contemplating how one should write to such an immensely great personage. At last she scribbled something, and at dawn she opened the curtains of her room as if for the first time she saw the sun shining in all its splendor and glory, giving light and life to all things in the universe. She thought to herself, the sun shines on the world and all that is therein with such grandeur and liberality. Does it need a letter? Does he expect us to appeal to him? The sun shines in the solar system and never needs any such superficial means of communication. Then she tore up the letter, and in her heart, she was certain that the spirit of the beloved master Abdu'l-Baha also would shine upon the world of human beings and grant them faith and love. Like the sun, he had all under his care and protection. There was no need to bother him with inadequate words and supplications. She said that days passed. Then, lo and behold, she received a tablet from the master. She never showed me that tablet. She did not at first show it to anyone. It was a secret between the lover and the loved one, and was sanctified from any kind of attention. The only part she revealed to us was this, that the master addressed her as Lady of the Kingdom. But we now know that in that tablet, he stated his hope that she would be confirmed to erect a structure that shall eternally remain firm and unshakable. Although, as Miss Collins explained, her husband Thomas never became a Baha'i in this world, she also describes how during their pilgrimage in 1923, Thomas became so enthralled with love for the Guardian that one day, while looking at the new and uncompleted building of the Western Pilgrim House, he exclaimed, "How can the Baha'is see an unfinished building every day in front of the Guardian's eyes? You will see that that building is brought to completion." Indeed, although Miss Collins herself lived very simply, During her lifetime, she made immensely generous contributions to the funds of the faith. Whilst the names and amounts of contributions given to the Baha'i funds are private, and contributions are never given with the expectation of recognition, historical records show us the vastness of Miss Collins' generosity and her detachment from wealth. According to Mr. Faizi, her whole aim and purpose was to see her beloved Shoghi Effendi happy and relieved of cares. And when she took a step, she never expected or wanted to receive acknowledgement and praise, much less any public announcement. Amelia Collins' travels for the Baha'i faith at the request of the Guardian were extensive. Amongst her many travels was a journey to Iceland in 1924 as the first Baha'i to visit that country. There she met Hólmfríður Anladóttir, who became the first Icelandic Baha'i. In 1945, Miss Collins was invited by Miss Arnardóttir to come to Iceland. In response, the Guardian replied through the secretary that he feels your presence in America more important than Iceland at this time. Miss Collins was the first to share the teachings of Baha'u'llah with indigenous peoples in the United States, in accordance with Abdu'l-Baha's tablets of the Divine Plan. And in 1948, the first local spiritual assembly comprising indigenous peoples was formed on the Omaha Indian Reservation at Macy, Nebraska. In January 1951, Shoghi Effendi appointed Amelia Collins as the Vice President of the International Baha'i Council, and she moved to Haifa to serve and lived there for the remainder of her life. In December of that year, the Guardian also appointed the first contingent of the Hands of the Cause, which included Miss Collins. It is interesting to note, however, that the Guardian had actually appointed her to this station several years earlier, though he did not then publicize her appointment. And one wonders at her own humility in never sharing this news with anyone until the announcement was made. In 1947, the Guardian wrote to her, "The high rank you now occupy, and which no Baha'i since the Master's passing has ever held in his own lifetime, has been conferred solely in recognition of the manifold services you have already rendered, and is by no means intended to be a stimulus or encouragement in the path of service. Indeed, the character of this latest and highly significant service you have rendered places you in the category of the chosen 9, who, unlike the other hands of the cause, are to be associated directly and intimately with the cares and responsibilities of the Guardian of the Faith. I feel truly proud of you, am drawn closer to you, and admire more deeply than ever before the spirit that animates you. In those heartbreaking and eventful days and years after the passing of the Guardian, Mr. Faizi says that Millie's will, determination, and absolute certainty of the ultimate victory of the cause were a great comfort, support, and guiding light to her co-workers. One of Miss Collins's last acts of service to the cause was, despite her frail health and excruciating pain as a result of arthritis, her attendance at the annual meeting of the Hands of the Cause. Mr. Faizi writes, "She attended the meeting of the Hands held in the mansion at Bahji, and even though she had to be carried to the upper floor in a chair, spoke with great conviction and strength, showering her abounding love upon all her co-workers. At the end of the meeting, we all entered the shrine of Baha'u'llah for praise and thanksgiving. She recited a prayer, every word of which took wings to the Abha kingdom. It was very evident that this was the last act in her heroic and dramatic life. Amelia Collins passed away on the afternoon of the 1st of January, 1962, at the age of 91. In her last earthly moments, she was held within the embrace of her beloved Amatul Bahar Ruhiya Khanum, whom Miss Collins had always showered with prayers, assurances of confidence, and a deep motherly love. Many years after I first heard of Amelia Collins, I came across Mr. Faizy's recollection of Miss Collins's explanation of her own personal relationship with that gate, and perhaps more significantly, with the Guardian. Ever since my childhood, she says, I had wanted a gate. Even when I was very small and used to build little houses for my dolls, I would try to make a gate for the doll's house. I used little bars of iron and other scraps, but none satisfied my longing. When we built a home in New England, Tom asked me about a gate. I said to him, Tom, I do not want to put the money into a gate now. But nothing could satisfy that deep longing of mine. About this time, I embraced the faith and forgot about this desire of mine. I had no thought anymore for worldly things. After my husband died and I had been called to Haifa to serve, I offered the beloved Guardian a contribution and expressed the hope that the sum be used for his personal needs. Time passed, and one day I received a letter from Shoghi Effendi. It contained a photograph of a gigantic and very beautiful gate, and a note asking me how I liked it, and informing me that it had been purchased with the money I had offered him. Immediately, I sent a message to him saying, exceedingly beautiful. One night, when some pilgrims were present at the table in the Western Pilgrim House, William Foster was among them. In his love for the Guardian, he expressed the wish to be of some service while he was on pilgrimage. He was a builder and contractor by profession. The beloved asked him if he could build a gate, and Bill replied with the greatest delight that he most certainly could. The Guardian then said he planned to erect the Collins Gate in the Haram Akhdas. Mr. Faizy says that this was the first time that Amelia Collins heard this expression. At that tender moment, as she gazed at the beloved Guardian, the sign of God on earth, who knew her inmost longing, Millie told us, he knew that my life has no worth except to offer it at his bidding at any moment. He responded to my look with a heavenly smile.
Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, it's the best video I've come across on Amelia Collins. Incredible.
Yeah.
So this is the Calumet and Hecla mineshaft, number 2, 1906. So if you recall, her husband made his fortune from this copper mine. And so this is from the mineshaft in 1906. And this is the Bisbee Masonic Lodge meeting in a stope of the Copper Queen mine, 1897. So they would have their meetings even in the mines. Millie became a Baha'i, as mentioned in the video, 1920s after the family moved to California. She made her first pilgrimage to the Baha'i holy places in Haifa, and in early 1923, accompanied her husband, Thomas. She was elected to the first National Spiritual Assembly of the Baha'is of the United States and Canada, 1925, and remained a member until 1933. And she was re-elected in 1938. So, important point. This letter, Advent of Divine Justice, she was one of the members that received this letter in 1938 and served until she was asked by the beloved guardian to serve at the Baha'i World Center. Millie traveled extensively throughout the United States and Canada, as well as Central and South America during the first and the second 7-year plans, assisting the communities with the consolidation and teaching work. Apart from the fact that she was an incredible, outstanding benefactress, she was not only an incredible administrator serving at the National Spiritual Assembly level, she was also an incredible teacher. And that's why I wanted to highlight, because it didn't say everything in that incredible video that we heard. So I wanted to highlight all of these things, that she traveled and taught and went to Central and South America. This is all part of the pioneering goals of the 7-year plans. So here, this is a newspaper clipping, and it says, visitor Mrs. Amelia Collins, who arrived in Miami Monday from South America. So she was in South America, right? Where she was on a special mission for the Baha'i faith, was entertained at a banquet at the Ermi Hotel Monday evening. She left for Chicago Tuesday, where she will attend a meeting of the National Spiritual Assembly of the Baha'is of the United States. So even at that relatively elderly age, she still traveled teaching, going to South America, going to Miami, going to, back to Chicago meetings, and travel teaching. So here is a picture of the National Spiritual Assembly of the Baha'is, United States, Canada. This is 1925, 1926. You see the members, Chairman Mountfort Mills, Roy Wilhelm, Horace Hawley, Florence Morton, Amelia Collins, Ali Kuli Khan, Siegfried Schopflocher, Alan McDaniel, and Carl Scheffler. And so several of these members became Hands of the Cause of God. What an incredible, as they say, band of heroes this group was. Truly stellar National Spiritual Assembly group. And here, this is the group 1937-1938 National Spiritual Assembly. So Dorothy Baker is there, seated left to right. Dorothy Baker, we just talked about her, right? And there's Mr. Louis Gregory, Leroy Ayes, and Amelia Collins. A whole band of hands right here, right? And then Siegfried Schopflocher, Roy Wilhelm, Horace Hawley, Alan McDaniel, and George Latimer. What a group in this National Spiritual Assembly. Truly amazing. So Thomas Collins, although having never embraced the faith, supported Millie's Baha'i activities. And these included the financial contributions that maintained the solvency of the Geyserville School. And in 1937, he unexpectedly died from a heart attack. The beloved guardian asked the Baha'is at the Geyserville Summer School to hold a befitting memorial service. So this is the announcement of that was in the Los Angeles Times 1937 announcement about Thomas Collins. It says funeral services for Thomas Hudson Collins. He was 65 years of age, for many years a prominent Arizona mining man, and in recent years associated with the Calumet Oil Company, will be conducted today at 3 p.m. at the Grace Chapel under direction of Pierce Brothers. Interment will be in the family plot in Inglewood Park Cemetery. And Mr. Collins died June 3rd in Rotterdam, Holland, while en route to Germany for a 3-month vacation and rescue, formerly of Bisbee, Arizona. Mr. Collins had lived in recent years at this address called Corona Del Mar, Pacific Palisades. He leaves his widow, Amelia E. Collins, who accompanied him on his European trip. So this is just a partial list, okay, dear friends, of her incredible sacrifices as a benefactress, of her contributions. And as mentioned in the video, all contributions are private, but this was mentioned in God Passes By. So the beloved guardian shared it. So I'm sharing it here too. So although Millie lived very simply, she made generous contributions to the faith. And in 1944, she sent the beloved guardian a generous contribution that covered most of the cost of constructing the superstructure for the Shrine of the Bab on Mount Carmel. So that superstructure, most of that cost also came from her. Other contributions, the purchase of the property on Mount Carmel. So a huge property on Mount Carmel, thanks to her. Development and extension of the Geyserville School properties in Northern California. So as you know, the current Bosch Baha'i School is not the Geyserville School. It was a different location, and then a freeway needed to be built. And so that was eventually sold, and then the Bosch Baha'i School came much later than that. So there was a Geyserville School prior to that. And so the development as well as the extension of the Geyserville School properties in North California in 1936. At Davison, Michigan, the first publication of Baha'i literature in Amharic, as well as the first contribution to the Bahia Khanum Fund towards the erection of the Mother Temple of America, 1939. Contribution to the Persian Temple Fund. Okay, so we pause right here. So as you may know, the third Baha'i temple, the third Baha'i temple, third Mashal Asghar was supposed to be in Iran, okay, in Tehran. So she was already contributing to the Persian Temple Fund. So as many of you may know, there was, the beloved guardian had already acquired extensive lands, over 2 million square feet of lands, almost went up to 4 million square feet of lands covering the base of Mount Elborz, the Elborz Mountains that face the city of Tehran, the Elborz Mountains. So he had already acquired the lands and the design had been approved for the house of worship of Tehran. So she had, so the funds were already there. This is the Persian Temple Fund. She had, this is Miss Amelia Collins, had defrayed the cost of publication of 4 volumes of the Baha'i World, additional contributions to Mother Temple works, gifts of property near the temple and to the temple dependency funds, and various teaching projects, donations towards the purchase of 19 supplementary sites in Latin America, Europe, and Asia. So these are all other locations for Mashal Asghar's houses of worship. So she'd already sent funds for, as well as a temple dependency fund. So these are the ancillaries to the houses of worship, such as the home for the aged, the hospital, the university, all the different ancillaries that will be in and around a house of worship. So these are the temple dependency fund. Contributions to aid embellishment of the area surrounding the tomb of Baha'u'llah Bahji, and erection and furnishing of the International Archives building on Mount Carmel, as well as the donation of the entire sum for the purchase of the temple site on Mount Carmel in 1953. So this is where the Mashal Asghar of Haifa on the Mount Carmel will be erected. The entire sum for the purchase of that location was thanks be to Miss Amelia Collins. And so this is in 1953, the beloved guardian acknowledged in his message to the 12 annual conventions Millie's munificent donation toward the purchase of many Hazrat al-Quds and endowments on 5 continents. And in his last convention message in 1957 for the donations for the building of the mother temples in Europe, Australia, and Africa, and the beloved guardian named the main gate to the Shrine of Baha'u'llah in Bachi in her honor, the Collins Gate. And we heard that it's an awesome story from Abul Qasim Faizi sharing that recollection of how that came to be. And here in 1951, the beloved guardian appointed Millie as the vice president of the International Baha'i Council, and she spent her final years in Haifa. So this is the members of the International Baha'i Council. So even though she's getting older and older and more aged, she didn't stop, okay? So, and this is a newspaper clipping that I found. It says Baha'i Council's aides. Remember, she's now a member of the International Baha'i Council. Baha'i Council's aide directs 10-year plan. So this is the 10-year crusade. Mrs. Amelia Collins, 81 and grandmotherly in disposition, is actually the well-traveled and informed vice president of the International Baha'i Council in Haifa, Israel. She's 81 years old right now. She is in Phoenix for a few days to rest and visit with her brother and his wife, Mr. and Mrs. Oscar Ingelder, at that address. Last year, 2 years ago, Mrs. Collins first came to Arizona in 1901 with her late husband, Thomas H. Collins, a young engineer for the Calumet and Arizona Mining Company in Bisbee, who later merged with the Phelps Dodge Corporation. She accepted the Baha'i faith in 1918 after reading the literature. At first active in the local organization, she graduated to national work. That's what every one of us should do. We got to graduate. I like how they wrote that. Okay. And 4 years ago, she was asked to serve on the International Council. She is right-hand woman to His Eminence Shoghi Effendi Rabbani, present head of the faith and grandson of the founder. One of her main tasks is administering the present Baha'i 10-year plan designed to establish the faith in every country and province in the world. There are now Baha'is in 228 provinces and countries. She and her husband traveled a great deal when he retired, but nothing compared to her present schedule. Isn't that interesting? Nothing compares to her present schedule. She's 81 years old. A popular speaker, she is on call at any time to go any place in the world for her faith. But when she's in Haifa, she loves to conduct tours through the beautiful Baha'i gardens and shrine. Right? Amazing, amazing. So here's a charming story recounted by Mr. Facey concerning Mrs. Collins during her advanced years. This was during the ministry of the Hands of the Cause, when they were traveling the world to raise up the national spiritual assemblies that would in turn elect the Universal House of Justice. So this is during the tail end of the 10-year crusade. Mr. Facey recounts that one day she asked, "Why am I alive? I am ill, weak, and not able to travel and teach. What is the use of my life?" It was a winter's day when this conversation took place in the office of the Hands of the Cause, where a small kerosene stove was burning. I said to her, "Millie dear, isn't the weather very cold now?" "Yes," she replied. "How is it that we can sit here, hold meetings, read letters, send messages to the Baha'i world in such comfort and ease?" "It is because of that little stove that is burning. It doesn't say anything. Does it make speeches? Does it travel? Never. The stove burns as long as it has kerosene. It gives its heat to us very generously, and in that warmth, we work. This is true of our physical comfort. Then how much more do we need spiritual heat to give us energy and power to go on and carry the load to the year 63, when we shall surrender all into the hands of the Supreme Body." Now, dearest, you are our spiritual stove. You burn and we speak, write, travel. A beautiful smile lighted her lovely face, and she reached up her hands to me to signify that I should help her up and accompany her to her room. I thought that was a nice story. Here, Abul Qasim Faizi comforting her and her old age, saying she is like a spiritual stove. I thought that was very nice. October 1961, Millie fell and fractured her arm, requiring hospitalization. And despite her frailness, she returned to Haifa to assist the hands of the cause in regard to the first election of the Universal House of Justice. She had to be carried in a wheelchair to the meetings being held at Bachi and was able to attend all but one. The 1st of January 1962, at the age of 91, Miss Millie Collins passed on to the Apa Kingdom while being held in the arms of Rih Khanum. Her body is buried in the Baha'i cemetery at the foot of Mount Carmel. This is her resting place. And this is the cablegram that was sent by the hands of the cause. January 1st, 1962, with deepest regret, share news Baha'i world, passing dearly loved hand cause, outstanding benefactress, Faith Amelia Collins, unfailing support, love, devotion, beloved guardian. Darkest period, his life brought her unique bounty, his deep affection, esteem, confidence, and honor. Direct association, work, world center, signal services, every field Baha'i activity, unforgettable. Purchase site, future Mashal Asghar, Mount Carmel. Generous gifts, hastening construction, mother temples, 4 continents, acquisition, national Hazratul goods, endowments, constant support, home fronts, worldwide teaching enterprises. Among her munificent donations, urge national assemblies hold memorial gatherings, particularly temples, commemorate her shining example, ceaseless services maintained until last breath. Airmail, message, hands, national assemblies. What a lady, right? It's hard, it's these incredible ladies that we're speaking about, because we were covering this paragraph 100, where the beloved guardian says these ladies handle the preponderating share. So I just wanted to share these incredible ladies. So I know we're just a few minutes over 4:04. There's just a few slides and then we'll finish this section. So this is Baha'i youth. This was the paragraph 101. In paragraph 101, the beloved guardian highlights the importance of Baha'i youth. Although they do not have much experience and resources, they possess an adventurous spirit, vigor, alertness, and optimism. Hence, the beloved guardian asked them to play an active role in the 7-year plan to teach the youth of their country, and it is essential to demonstrate that the youth have an intelligent, persistent, and effective participation in both the teaching work and the administrative work of the faith. And this will convince the critics of the faith that the cause is intensely alive, has a sound core, and has a safeguarded future. This is straight from paragraph 101. Such participation will contribute to the progress of the faith, will affect the youths themselves, and spiritually empower them to display their inherent capacities to unfold a further stage of their spiritual evolution. And the last slide is on Panama. So this is our last slide on this section. So we'll close with this one. So in paragraph 102, the beloved guardian refers to the importance of Panama. and cites some statements from His Holiness Abdu'l-Baha in this regard. And in the Tablets of the Divine Plan, Abdu'l-Baha mentions that all the countries in Latin America, but in particular, Panama, will become important in the future. This is because of the strategic position of Panama, the location of it, where two oceans are connected through the Panama Canal. The beloved Guardian then asked the Baha'i community to pay special attention to this republic. There we are, dear friends. That was our paragraph set. Hope you enjoyed our class today.
It was great, Ehsan. I appreciate it. Thank you so much. And I wanted to ask you one question. I know we're running over, but about that Panama statement, because I remember specifically previously you talked about how it connects the east and the west, but also the north and the south. And so do you have any more information in regarding to like, is that part of can that be one of the things that will help, or we can say is going to usher in the greater peace? You don't know? Okay.
I'm not sure. In time we will find out. This is something just like in time we will find out. It is mentioned in Tablets of the Divine Plan that in the station and importance of Panama will become known. And this is something, that's why one of the first temples in the Baha'i world is in Panama. And I had the privilege to visit it on my honeymoon. And when I got off the boat, I went on one of these cruises, and so I got off the boat in Panama, and I went and found the taxi cab driver, myself and my wife, and I said, I want to go visit Baha'i House of Worship. He said, what? Oh, I said, egg temple. And so we got in the cab, and we went and took 1 hour going, and went up the mountain, and we saw the egg temple. And so we went and said our prayers, and it's so beautiful. I encourage everyone to, if they can, to visit these houses of worship wherever they are. And it's so incredible, and it looks very simple in pictures, but it's so majestic when you get up to the top of the house of worship in Panama. And because it's all very open, the winds are blowing through this temple, and it's so serene and quiet, and the whole Panama City is right underneath you and lush green. And maybe a few Baha'is are there saying prayers in the foyer, in the temple area auditorium. And then they have this awesome bookstore and atrium that people come in, and this welcome center. But I encourage, if anyone can get out to these house of worship, I encourage them to. Thank you so much.
Okay, does everyone see the screen?
Yes.
Oh my God, thou seest me in my lowliness and weakness, occupied with the greatest undertaking, determined to raise thy word among the masses and to spread thy teachings among thy peoples. How can I succeed unless thou assist me with the breath of the Holy Spirit? Help me to triumph by the host of thy glorious kingdom, and shower upon me thy confirmations, which alone can change a gnat into an eagle, a drop of water into rivers and seas, and an atom into lights and suns. O my Lord, assist me with thy triumphant and effective might, so that my tongue may utter thy praises and attributes among all people, and my soul overflow with the wine of thy love and knowledge. Thou art the omnipotent and the doer of whatsoever thou willest.
Thank you very much, Jeremiah, and thank you to the
Thanks, guys.
Clearwater Baha'i community.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.